McCauley, and you're watching accesstv.org.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kelvin Roldan. I'm the Chief Communications and Public Policy Officer for Hartford Public Schools. Welcome on this update on our strategic operating plan, Cultivating Equity and Excellence. The agenda this morning will be very succinct. The Superintendent of Schools will be providing an update on our strategic operating plan targets, followed by a focus on one of our strategies in action, K-2 literacy curriculum. With that, the Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Narvaez.
Okay, great. Thank you, Kelvin, and good morning, everyone. It's always great to see so many of our friends gathered together to hear an update on the important work that we're doing together on behalf of our 21,000 children in the Hartford Public Schools. So welcome to the story of now, right? This is our year of action. And we want to share with you what our strategic plan, what our strategies in action look like. So this is the first in a series of updates. You, our community, helped us build this plan, and we are committed to continuing that conversation and partnering with you as we roll out this work. So the first one today, K-2 literacy, we want you to see what that is looking like in our classrooms with our youngest learners in the system. In a few months, we want to share an update featuring our acceleration agenda. And then in the spring, we want to give you an update about another strategy in action, our high school centers of innovation. So when we launched the plan, people said, great, you have a plan. We like it. But where the rubber meets the road is in the implementation, right? That's what the success hinges on. Strong implementation. It's also where we see efforts fall down. So one of the reasons for convening these forums to give update is to show you that we are paying careful attention to implementation. And we are doing what we said we are going to do. So this is our plan, as you know. And it is our vision that it's our students who will transform their world. And it's our responsibility to make sure that our students create their own success, both in and beyond school. And you'll see that we are committed to that even with our youngest children. Our youngest children owning their own learning, finding their own voices, and learning how to be leaders, even in the youngest of grades. We have two big bets. Students are at the center of their learning always. We build this work around our students. We are finding more ways for them to read, write, listen, speak, think, and lead well. And we're committed to making sure that education in Hartford is not a one-size-fits-all experience. Right? We're customizing and personalizing children's entire career, entire journey with us. Our second bet is on leaders. And that's leaders at all levels, not just leaders in formal leadership positions like principals, like superintendents, but leadership among our students, as you heard, our teachers, again, another strong feature of our K-2 literacy curriculum, of our families. And that was one of our first moves when we released the plan, and I'm really proud of that. We released a companion plan stating our priorities for partnering with our families and community, because we know I've said it before and I will say it again, we cannot do this work alone. Then finally, how will we measure our success? Right? We talk about our success in terms of equity indicators. The pinnacle of that success is that all of our students are ready for college and are accepted in college and have the choice, and they make the choice about whether or not they're going to college. But we know there's a lot of work that has to happen along the way, so we've named that. And we've named it in two big areas. First, kids need to feel connected to school and a sense of belonging, and they need to be engaged in real and deep ways. So we measure that by looking at things like attendance, like reduced suspensions, like making sure kids are connected to a caring adult that are helping students and shepherding their success as documented in a personalized plan for success for each student. We also measure success along the way by looking at key academic milestones, like the one you'll hear about today, the importance of reading well in the early grades, like mastering a subject like algebra because it's a gatekeeper to higher level courses in high school and then college. So we've laid that out because this is a plan to level the playing field for our kids. I won't lie, we have set ambitious goals. It's going to be a stretch to get there in 5 years. But remember, we start our theory of action with high expectations. You have to start with high expectations in order to get to equity. So in order to make sure we're on the path to reaching these very lofty goals, we have set out some benchmarks that drive the work internally. So we've documented for you our benchmark for this year, what we hope to achieve. Now again, these are tough, and take careful attention to how we're doing the work, so that we know how we're getting success, or we know where we need to make mid-course corrections. And I'll tell you that sometimes when you're trying new things and you're changing the way people do business, you sometimes see what's called an implementation dip, right? So we know improvement isn't always linear, that you make the same progress year after year. But we want to be aggressive in making sure we're driving the work forward in a way that will get us to our 5-year goals. So we use those as internal markers to make sure we're on track. All of our central office departments have built very detailed implementation plans to show how they contribute to the work moving forward, to our 2 key strategies, and ultimately the equity indicators for our students. All of our schools have built their school improvement plans around these same strategies and goals so that we're all working hand in hand and moving in the same direction for our students. I know when we talk to our community partners, the conversation now is grounded in the work that's documented here in the plan, and we thank you for that. We thank you for your partnership and your willingness to come together to support this really important work that we're doing here. So with that, we know how important it is for kids to have a great start when they're with us. And so that's why we're highlighting our brand new K-2 literacy curriculum as our first strategy in action. I've been so pleased to see it in action. You know about me that I get to a lot of schools, a lot of classrooms, so it's been a pleasure to see the K-2 literacy curriculum as I visit classrooms in our school. And here to tell you more is our Chief Academic Officer, Kate England. Let me get the slide teed up for you. Okay.
Good morning, everybody. It's really nice to be here this morning to talk to you about our K-2 curriculum. It's a project that has been really fabulous, both to have a part in building out and then to watch its implementation in the buildings. I want to start first by talking about the current state of our implementation. We have 15 schools that are involved in our first full year of implementation this year. We piloted the K-2 curriculum last year with 6 schools. What's really been important about this effort is it's taught us that nothing happens in a silo. This has been work that has been a cross-team effort here at Central Office with our early literacy team and our English Language Learner Services office, as well as at our schools. Our pilot schools and teachers and leaders really helped us build out the curriculum. So I see several of my colleagues in attendance here today that are certainly the people who are building out and developing the work and also people implementing. So if you could either stand or just raise your hand, I think it's really important to recognize the work that's happened. Yes, hello, my friends in the front, just a little wave. I see Azra's here, who's one of our principals, so thank you very much. It's work that doesn't happen without people in the field and without a team. So let me talk a little bit about the specifics of the K-2 literacy curriculum. It's our featured strategy in action today, as Dr. Narvaez said, and it's the work that will help us achieve our equity indicator related to 3rd grade reading proficiency. So why 3rd grade? In partial answer to that, I'd actually like to fast forward to another of our equity indicators. 100% of our Hartford Public Schools students graduating from high school and gaining acceptance to college. What does college acceptance have to do with primary grades reading, you may ask? Well, we know that the work of high school graduation and college acceptance does not start in high school. For our students to be prepared for college entry and career success, it is imperative that we start in the primary grades with our youngest learners. Sadly, the research tells us that if we don't help students read proficiently by 3rd grade, their academic prognosis is not good. Children who don't read proficiently by the end of 3rd grade are 4 times more likely to leave high school without a diploma than proficient readers. Students of color who are not reading proficiently are twice as likely as their white peers not to graduate from high school. So we feel the urgency in this work. As evidenced by our spring 2015 reading data, only 35% of our students were at proficiency by the end of 3rd grade. But let's shift our focus to positive news, which is our strategy in action today, the K-2 literacy curriculum. We believe that our curriculum will provide us with the work that we need to do with our students to ensure their proficiency. It's research-based, and it's really raised the standards, both in terms of instruction, as well as in terms of our expectations for our learners. In a moment, I'll talk to you about some of the things that our youngest learners are doing in kindergarten classrooms, and I think you'll be pretty amazed. Our curriculum includes an in-depth foundational skills component, which is aimed at teaching students concepts about print, letter and sound awareness, or phonics, and other basic grammar conventions. Equally important, our curriculum uses a balanced literacy approach, which is developed to provide students instruction during a literacy block that includes a read aloud, shared reading, small group instruction, and opportunities to read fiction and nonfiction text independently. The picture you see behind me shows some of our youngest learners, kindergartners, during small group instruction. They're reading text at just the right level, which means that their teacher has provided an assessment that lets them really understand what level the students can read this text and start to develop proficiency. You can see their engagement in the fact that, first of all, they look happy, and second of all, they're digging right into the work. You can see the teachers engaged as well, ready to support students with materials that will help them develop their foundational skills as well as their ability to read text. This snapshot represents the learning that we're seeing in all of our K-2 classrooms in Hartford at the moment, those classrooms that are implementing our new curriculum. What you can't see in this picture, and it's a shame that I can't bring you with me on all the walkthroughs that I get to do in schools, but there's a lot of action happening in a kindergarten classroom, as you might imagine. But the positive action is students are interacting with a really print-rich environment. They're using text every single day that's at their level. It's a variety of text. The walls are covered in print that's useful to students, so it's not the posters like back when I was in school, but it's word walls, it's words that students can actually use as they're reading and writing in the classroom. So the walls are alive with print. You'd see students as young as 5 working in small groups independently. So you look at this picture, we have a teacher working with, there are actually 4 students in this picture, and there are probably 16 other 5-year-olds in the classroom. So what are those students doing right now? Well, the beautiful part about the curriculum is that because it's so engaging and because there are so many protocols that help really young children understand how to work independently, I'm happy to say that children are doing really productive work in small groups, largely independently. I was lucky enough the other day to be on a walkthrough at one of our schools, and I was in a kindergarten classroom, and I saw a teacher working with a small group of students, and I saw other students working in small groups looking at artifacts that were related to a book that they had read, a nonfiction book. And it was evidence of early discourse, really. So we want our children to understand how to engage with each other and talk to each other. As Dr. Narvaez said in her remarks, we want our children to be leaders, right? So they have to understand how to talk to each other. And they were. They were looking at the artifacts. They were talking about the book. One student had been assigned to take notes by drawing pictures on what the other students were saying. And it was really a great example of the level of rigor that we're asking of our youngest students, and also their ability to really rise to the occasion. So I thought it was just an excellent example. Actually made my day, in case that's not coming across. I think one of the other really powerful aspects of our K-2 curriculum is that we don't wait to find out whether what we're doing with our students is working. We have built-in ongoing performance tasks that allow teachers to determine early and often with each student whether they need further instruction on certain skills and strategies in order to develop proficiency. And we've provided teachers with these tools to get students back on track when necessary. So none of us like any surprises, right? So we don't want to wait until a child's at the end of kindergarten to discover that he or she is already 3 or 4 levels below where they need to be to access first grade curriculum. So we're really very consciously paying attention to those benchmark assessments. So in closing around the student piece, our kindergarten through 2 literacy curriculum really enhances our students' ability to read, write, speak, think, and lead well, and we believe really poises them for success in their future academic endeavors and beyond. Another really important feature of our K-2 curriculum is the work we have done to create opportunities to develop leaders to lead for learning. Our school leaders were involved in the curriculum's development, and as we've rolled out the curriculum to our 15 schools, leaders remain really solid learning partners. We ask them to come along with us on walkthroughs. They attend many of our cohort meetings, so we've really been very appreciative of our building leaders' interest in developing their own instructional leadership capacity. But I want to talk for a moment about teacher leadership. This is an aspect of this project that has just been, to me, really a really unintended consequence. Teachers were involved in the development and implementation of this curriculum every step of the way during the pilot year. In fact, if it weren't for our teachers serving as leaders in the work, this curriculum probably would not exist. So we have our ideas here at Central Office, right? And we create what we think is going to work out there in the field. And unless we are partnering with teachers and paraprofessionals and all the people working with our children daily for all those hours, we actually don't know if what we were thinking is working. So I'd like to compliment my team and others who have worked with us in our ability to be reflective, right? Because the other thing we've done is say, this was a great idea when we thought of it, but it really wasn't working. So let's go back to the drawing board and try again. So that's a lot of work, right? And it takes a leap of faith. But what it's resulted in is a curriculum that we're still refining, but that is in such better shape than it was last year and is really being used very effectively in our 15 schools. Something else that you should know about our curriculum implementation is that we've developed what I think is a unique model. So many times we develop a curriculum, and where this all starts to fall apart is in the implementation. What we've done to ensure that that doesn't happen is to develop a cohort model for implementation. So in our 15 schools, we have our schools grouped in a number of cohorts. And cohorts include 3 or 4 schools that become solid communities of practice for learning, implementing, and refining curriculum and instruction. So it's like a little mini support network for teachers who are learning something really new. Everybody needs a safety net. So instead of saying, wait until your central office contact person can come back to you, you have your colleagues right in your building. What's unique about our model is, yes, we do have a central office point person assigned to each cohort. That makes sense, right? We're doing the development work. But each cohort also has several teacher leads who develop and support professional learning for colleagues. I think that is one of the most important aspects of this curriculum implementation, and I think also will lead to its sustainability in the future. The photo you see here provides an example of an instructional coach who's also a teacher, leading professional learning for teachers in her cohort of schools involved in the curriculum. It could be any one of those people standing up in front of the group. That's the power of this project. Just so happens to be one of our second grade teachers from Parkville School. Actually, it's not a coach, it's a teacher now that I'm looking at the picture more carefully. What you don't see in this picture is the ongoing collaboration and planning and sharing of lessons that's happening every single day in every one of our 15 implementation schools. This is really different. Even when I was a principal, it was a change in thinking to have my staff members at grade level teams not discuss field trips when they were working together in their common planning time, right? We know that our time is so limited during the school day that we have to spend every second really thinking and talking about instruction. So I guarantee you, if you were to walk into one of our 15 implementation schools right now, regardless of whether it was a kindergarten, first or second grade common planning time, you would see teams of teachers working together, puzzling over this new curriculum, talking about instruction, talking about how to improve it, talking about how to prepare and share rich materials to use with learners. What we're really noticing is that teachers are teaching with joy. They're feeling successful in their ability to reach all learners. As one second grade teacher recently shared on a survey, the new K-2 curriculum has reignited my passion for teaching. I actually feel like I'm meeting my learners' needs. You can't make that up, right? So I think that's just a quote that really summarizes the project. Just as we've placed students at the center of their learning, we have placed teachers at the center of their teaching and have nurtured their leadership capacity. Last but not least, I want to talk about our students' first teachers, their parents and family members, and the work that we are delving into to really engage our parents as partners. Please take a look at the parent brochure that you have at your seat, and absolutely take it with you and look at it more carefully. But you should know that we're developing one of these brochures for each unit at every grade level for our curriculum. And again, we'll take your feedback and we'll take everyone else's feedback. These are barely out of draft phase and still really, we're still considering what makes the most sense. But our intent in this is to reach out to our parents in partnership to help them, first of all, understand what we're doing with their little babies, 4, 5, and 6-year-olds and 7-year-olds, but also to understand how when their child comes home and starts talking about an image he's seen in a book or something really exciting that happened in a science book that was related to the curriculum, that our parents have a way to connect with what their children are bringing home and to understand where that's coming from. Our K-2 team, who I don't know where they get their energy, to be quite honest, because every time I'm anywhere, that's where they are too. They're in schools all day long. They're at parent events at night, really supporting this work and helping parents understand what this work looks like. They're attending family events at our schools and really engaging families in conversations about how we can partner better with parents around this work. So in closing, we finally and constantly, not finally, we don't do this, we constantly think long and hard about measuring the results of our work. How do we know what we're doing is working? So we have our benchmarks, we have our assessments. We're going to be looking with great excitement at our mid-year benchmark data, particularly for schools who are in our pilot phase, because they'll have about 18 months of piloting and implementation under their belts. So that's one evidence of students' progress. But I look at things too, like, how is our instruction looking when we walk around in classrooms? We are already seeing such amazing shifts in classroom instruction in the implementation schools. We've developed an instructional walkthrough protocol that allows teachers in each cohort to visit each other's classrooms, gather data on instruction, and discuss the results, shoring up all of our understanding of what quality early literacy instruction looks like for learners. During these walkthroughs, we've observed an increasing number of classrooms who are implementing the curriculum with fidelity. And we've seen examples of highly engaged students at the center of their learning. I really can't ask for much more than that right now. It's really exciting work. Another example of our progress is in the Office of Academics Teaching and Learning Hub on the Hartford Public Schools intranet. Teachers can view curriculum, sample lesson plans, book suggestions, and many other topics related to the K-2 curriculum. Best of all, most of these materials have been created and posted by our teachers. So it's really a way for teachers to be proud of the work that they're doing, to take a risk and share something they're doing in hopes that other people will use it or reflect on it and comment on it. It's really a testimony to the hard work of our teachers and their enthusiasm to share their work. And by the way, by a point of bragging, our K-2 Learning Hub has received the greatest traffic of any other curriculum area, with nearly 1,200 unique hits in the months of September and October. We see this as a very positive sign of the excitement that the project is generating. Finally, a little commercial for what's coming next. We're going to be rolling out the K-2 curriculum to the remaining schools in the I can't even believe these numbers are coming out of my mouth right now, the 2016-17 school year, next year. And we're currently in the development phase of a pilot in 3rd through 5th grades in those same pilot schools that worked with us on the K-2, so that eventually we'll have a seamless K-5 literacy curriculum in place to serve our intermediate grade learners as well. As you may notice from my comments, we take our students' futures very seriously. We know what we do early in their school careers greatly impacts their future successes. We believe that our K-2 curriculum will pave the way for great things for our youngest learners as they grow and develop. So I could certainly stand here for a few more hours and talk to you about all the great work of the K-2 curriculum, but I know we all have places to go. So I'll turn it back over to our superintendent, Dr. Narvaez. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Kate. We're trying to take the advice of some of the best writing teachers who encourage you to show, not tell. So we hope we've shown you some of the exciting things happening in the classrooms of our youngest learners, because it's the foundation of their journey to get us to college, to get all of our children to college. And just to close, this is the perfect segue into the next conversation and event we want to invite you all to. So we have launched a Family-Friendly Schools initiative. We know how important it is to do this work in partnership with our families, focused on what our kids need to know and be able to do. So I want to invite you all to our December 5th launch of our Family-Friendly Schools initiative. It will be held at Hartford Public High School starting at 9 o'clock. We have done this in collaboration with our board. I want to acknowledge my board member, Mr. Craig Stallings, who's in the back of the room, and thank him for all his support in leading the way, particularly around the family engagement work. And so I want to invite you all to continue to be part of this work and these conversations, and we hope to see you again on December 5th, if not sooner. Thank you, everyone, for being here today, and now I'll open it up for questions. Ken, good morning.
Good morning. I guess I would like to ask how you believe this might, this effort might dovetail with and work to improve equity for equity warriors. You know,
Yes.
what's the real key connection?
I would say there are two key components to the connection of equity. First, elevating student voice. When you go into these classrooms of our young children, they are vibrant with children's voices. Children are talking to each other about what they're learning, about the texts. We know how important it is for oral language development, for students to become strong readers and writers. If students can tell stories well, that leads them to becoming stronger, again, readers and writers along their way. So we believe in nurturing student voice right from when children enter our schools. That's a first step in building equity. And also, quite frankly, Ken, it's around expectations, right? We start with that in our equity work, we've raised the expectations of what our kids need to know and be able to do. We've raised the standards. And we know children can rise to that occasion given the right support. So first, the student piece, elevating student voice and elevating expectations are key parts of our equity work. The second piece, as Kate pointed out, has to do with the adults. And making sure, you know, when we talk about in our plan, I'll point over here, our theory of action, expectations, engagement, each and every and expanding capacity is not just for our children, but it's also for our adults. So the teacher leadership piece, the fact that teachers are creating this curriculum together is another part of equity. And it also points to another important shift that I've talked about with this plan time and time again. We are moving from a system of competition to collaboration. And the way that this is being designed, that the triads of schools work together, is a real illustration of collaboration that makes sure that the standard of work and learning is consistently high, no matter where you go to school in Hartford. So it's with the students and with the adults that we're building equity warriors across the system through this strategy in action.